Welcome to a deep dive,
Oh,
into this fascinating world of these super Earths.
oh yeah.
Um, we've been hearing from you guys. You're very curious about planets beyond our solar system
Yeah.
and, particularly the ones that are bigger than our own Earth.
Right.
So we're going to be using some excerpts from the Wikipedia article on super Earths, and that'll be our roadmap for this deep dive.
Okay.
And our mission is to uncover what a super Earth actually is, how we find them, and what we know about their characteristics and potential for, hosting life.
I think it's, exciting because super Earths are a relatively new category of planets.
Yeah.
And they're really challenging our understanding of how planets, form and evolve.
Okay, so let's unpack this. What exactly is a super Earth? The Wikipedia article mentions it's all about mass.
Right. The working definition is based on mass. So a planet with a mass greater than Earth's but less than that of Uranus and Neptune, which
Yeah.
are about 14.5 and 17.1 times Earth mass, respectively.
So super Earth really just tells us about size, not necessarily what the planet is made of or if it could support life.
Precisely. It's like saying, a skyscraper is super tall.
Yeah.
It just tells us about one characteristic.
Right.
In fact, some scientists prefer terms like gas dwarfs or mini Neptunes
Okay.
for larger super-Earths, especially those with thick atmospheres.
Interesting.
Yeah,
So a super Earth could be a rocky planet like ours, a water world, or even a gassy mini Neptune.
yeah,
That's quite a range.
that's right.
And how do we even find these super Earths considering they're so incredibly far away?
Well, the first super-Earths were actually discovered in 1992,
Okay.
orbiting a pulsar,
Wow.
a rapidly rotating neutron star, which wasn't what astronomers expected.
Pulsar, that's quite a unique environment for planets.
It was a surprise.
Yeah.
But these early discoveries showed us that planet formation could occur in, more diverse environments than we initially thought.
Okay.
And then in 2005, we found the first super-Earth around a main sequence star, a star similar to our sun.
Right.
This one was orbiting Gliese 876. And, its discovery really ignited interest in this new class of planets.
And didn't the Kepler Space Telescope play a huge role in finding more of these super Earths?
Absolutely. Kepler was a game changer.
Yeah.
Discovering thousands of exoplanet candidates,
Yes.
including many super-Earths.
Wow.
It used what's called the transit method, which is basically watching a star's brightness
Right.
for tiny dips that occur when a planet passes in front of it.
Ah, the transit method. Like a mini eclipse, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
And since super-Earths are larger than Earth, their transits cause, a slightly bigger dip in starlight,
Yeah.
making them a bit easier to detect than smaller planets.
Clever. So we found super Earths around pulsars, sun-like stars,
Yeah.
and even in the habitable zone, that sweet spot where conditions might be just right for liquid water
Right.
and potentially life.
Exactly.
The discovery of a Gliese 581c in 2007 caused quite a stir, didn't it?
It did.
Yeah.
Gliese 581c was one of the first super-Earths found in the habitable zone of its star, and it sparked a lot of excitement and speculation about its potential for life.
Right.
However, further research suggests it might actually have a runaway greenhouse effect, much like Venus, making its surface far too hot for life as we know it.
Oh, that's a shame. A screeching super Venus instead of a habitable super Earth.
Yeah, it was a good reminder that just being in the habitable zone
Right.
isn't enough to guarantee a planet is hospitable to life.
Yeah.
There are many other factors at play, as we'll discuss later.
That's fascinating. It seems like every new discovery raises more questions than answers.
Yeah.
And speaking of questions, I'm curious, why doesn't our solar system have any known super Earths?
That's a puzzle that has planetary scientists scratching their heads.
Yeah.
One leading hypothesis is that the presence of Jupiter, our solar system's largest planet,
Right.
might have prevented super-Earths from forming closer to the sun.
So Jupiter acted as a sort of gravitational gatekeeper, influencing the formation of the inner solar system.
Exactly. Imagine Jupiter's strong gravity clearing out much of the material that could have formed super-Earths.
Right.
It's a complex interplay of gravitational sources,
Yeah.
but that's the general idea.
Yeah.
Of course, there are other hypotheses as well,
Okay.
including the Grand Tack hypothesis,
Yeah.
which suggests Jupiter actually migrated closer to the sun early in its formation,
Wow.
scattering material and potentially disrupting the formation of super-Earth before moving back to its current position.
That's fascinating. I'd love to delve deeper into those hypotheses later,
Yeah.
but first I can't resist asking about Planet 9, that hypothetical world lurking in the outer reaches of our solar system.
Right.
Could that be our missing super Earth?
Planet 9, if it exists, is thought to be either a super-Earth or an ice giant.
Okay.
Its gravitational influence could explain the peculiar clustering of the orbits of some objects beyond Neptune.
Interesting.
But so far, it's just a hypothesis
Right.
based on those unusual orbital patterns.
Right.
We haven't directly observed it yet.
So a potential hidden sibling for Earth, perhaps a super-Earth playing cosmic hide-and-seek.
Possibly.
That's intriguing. Okay, we've talked about what super-Earths are and how we find them.
Yeah.
But what about their actual characteristics? What do we know about what lies beneath the surface of these mysterious worlds?
Well, that's where it gets tricky.
Yeah.
We can't directly observe their surfaces.
Right.
So we have to rely on a combination of what we can measure, like mass and radius,
Yeah.
and sophisticated models to understand their composition and structure.
Oh.
One important clue is density.
Right.
By measuring a super-Earth's mass and radius, we can calculate its density
Right.
and get an idea of what it might be made of.
Okay, so density is key.
Yeah.
What if we learned about super-Earth composition based on their density?
So based on density, scientists have broadly categorized super-Earths into 4 main types:
Okay.
low density, intermediate density, high density.
Okay.
And those with densities so high, they challenge our understanding of planetary formation.
Mm-hmm. 4 types. That suggests quite a variety. Can you tell us more about each type?
Sure. So let's start with the low-density super-Earths.
Okay.
These are likely composed mostly of hydrogen and helium,
Okay.
much like mini-Neptunes.
Okay.
Then we have the intermediate density super-Earths.
Okay.
These could be ocean planets where water is a major component,
Wow.
or gas dwarfs with a denser core and a thick gassy envelope.
So you've got fluffy gas planets and potential water worlds.
Right.
What about the denser ones?
The high-density super-Earths are most likely rocky or metallic, similar to Earth.
Okay.
Think of them as bigger, denser versions of our home planet.
Interesting. But some super-Earths have densities so high they defy easy categorization.
Yes, these are the truly intriguing ones. They might be composed of elements heavier than those typically found in rocky planets,
Wow.
perhaps with large iron cores or even exotic materials.
Okay.
These super-dense super-Earths push the boundaries of our understanding of planetary composition.
A real mystery. We're getting a picture of incredible diversity among super-Earths. Yeah.
But what about their geologic activity?
Right.
Are they just giant static balls of rock and gas, or is there something more dynamic going on?
That's a question scientists are actively trying to answer.
Yeah.
Some models suggest that super-Earths could be more geologically active than Earth
Okay.
due to the increased pressure from their larger mass.
Right.
This could lead to thinner tectonic plates that are more easily moved by the planet's internal heat,
Uh-huh.
resulting in more frequent and powerful earthquakes and volcanic eruptions.
So imagine supervolcanoes and earthquakes on a scale we can barely comprehend.
Right.
That's quite a picture.
It would be a dramatic sight.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, other models propose that the immense gravity and internal pressure of a super-Earth might inhibit plate tectonics altogether.
So which scenario is more likely? More geologic activity or less?
We need more data to say for sure.
Right.
It likely depends on the specific characteristics of each super-Earth, like its composition, internal structure,
Yeah.
and the amount of heat flowing from its interior. It's a fascinating puzzle.
Yeah.
But tell me, what about temperatures on these super-Earths?
Right.
Are we talking fiery hellscapes, frigid wastelands, or something in between?
Unfortunately, it's hard to say for sure without knowing more about their atmospheres,
Right.
their albedo, which is how much light they reflect,
Right.
and any greenhouse effects.
Yeah.
We can calculate what's called an equilibrium temperature,
Okay.
which is the temperature a planet would have based purely on the amount of starlight it receives.
Right.
But the actual surface temperature could be very different depending on these other factors.
Okay, so just like Venus, where the thick atmosphere traps heat and creates a scorching surface, even though its equilibrium temperature is much lower?
Precisely.
Okay.
And speaking of Venus, it raises an important question about super-Earths.
Okay.
Do they have magnetic fields?
Yeah.
Earth's magnetic field, generated by its molten iron core,
Right.
acts as a shield, protecting us from harmful radiation from the sun. And we know Venus doesn't have a global magnetic field, which is thought to be one reason why it's so inhospitable.
Right.
So do super-Earths have their own magnetic shields?
It's a good question.
It's possible,
Uh,
but the way they might generate those fields could be quite different from Earth.
okay.
The extreme pressure inside a super-Earth could prevent the interior from differentiating into distinct layers,
Right.
meaning there might not be a separate molten iron core like Earth's to generate a magnetic field.
So no molten iron core, no magnetic field.
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Some researchers believe that under the immense pressures inside a super-Earth,
Yeah.
magnesium oxide,
Mm-hmm.
a common mineral on Earth,
Right.
could act as a liquid metal and generate a magnetic field within the mantle.
So even without a distinct core, they could still have a magnetic field just generated in a different way.
That's right.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I think the question on everyone's mind is, could life exist on a super Earth?
That's the big question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the answer, at least for now, is we don't know.
Come on, give us at least some educated speculation.
Sure.
What are the possibilities?
Well, there's a hypothesis that super-Earths, around twice the mass of Earth, might actually be more suitable for life than Earth itself.
More suitable. Okay, now you have to explain that.
Okay, so imagine a super-Earth with a thicker atmosphere,
Okay.
leading to a flatter topography and potentially vast, shallow oceans.
Uh-huh.
The increased gravity could also mean sustained plate tectonics for longer periods,
Okay.
which is thought to be important for regulating climate and the carbon cycle.
Right.
And of course, a stronger magnetic field would offer better protection from harmful cosmic rays.
So we're picturing a world with vast, life-teeming oceans, stable continents, and a strong magnetic shield.
Right.
This sounds like a paradise planet.
It's certainly a compelling possibility,
Yeah,
but we need to remember that this is all based on models and hypotheses.
of course.
We need more data, more observations to truly understand the potential for life on these fascinating worlds.
Of course, it seems like with each new discovery, we peel back another layer of the cosmic onion, only to reveal even more layers beneath.
That's right.
But tell me, are there specific challenges to habitability on super-Earths that we should consider?
There are, and some of them are quite intriguing.
Okay.
For instance, many super-Earths are tidally locked to their stars,
Right.
meaning one side always faces the star and the other is in perpetual darkness.
Yeah.
This can lead to extreme temperature differences between the two hemispheres,
Right.
potentially making it difficult for life to evolve or thrive.
That makes sense. A permanent day side and night side would create some wild weather patterns.
Absolutely.
And I imagine the atmospheric composition of a super-Earth could also play a huge role in its habitability, right?
Absolutely. We've already talked about how a thick atmosphere could trap heat and create a runaway greenhouse effect like Venus.
Right.
But the composition of the atmosphere is also crucial.
Yeah.
For example, a planet with an atmosphere dominated by hydrogen and helium might not be conducive to life as we know it.
So it's not just about the thickness of the atmosphere, but also what it's made of.
Precisely.
And I'm guessing the type of star a super-Earth orbits would also be a factor in its habitability.
Definitely red dwarf stars, which are smaller and cooler than our sun,
Right.
are the most common type of star in the Milky Way.
Right.
Many super-Earths have been found orbiting red dwarfs, but these stars can be prone to powerful flares that could strip away a planet's atmosphere or bombard its surface with harmful radiation.
Oh, so red dwarfs are like fickle landlords?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they're quiet, and sometimes they throw wild parties that make life difficult for their planetary tenants.
That's a good analogy. So while red dwarfs are exciting targets in the search for habitable planets,
Yeah.
we have to consider the challenges they present as well.
It's a reminder that the universe is full of surprises, and habitability is a complex equation with many variables.
Absolutely.
But speaking of the universe's surprises, didn't the article mention something about how super-Earths might form differently from the planets in our solar system?
You're right. Our terrestrial planets, Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars, likely formed through a process called accretion.
Right.
Over millions of years, smaller rocky bodies collided and stuck together, gradually building up into larger planets.
So like a cosmic snowball effect where small rocks gradually accumulate into a planet.
Exactly.
Okay.
But for super-Earths, especially those with thick gaseous envelopes, the formation process might be quite different.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
How might they form differently?
Instead of solely forming through accretion, super-Earths could also form by capturing gas directly from the protoplanetary disk,
Okay.
which is the cloud of gas and dust that surrounds a young star.
Right.
This process, called disk instability, can lead to the rapid formation of a massive planet with a rocky core surrounded by a thick atmosphere.
So instead of slowly building up a planet from smaller pieces,
Yeah.
it's more like a giant gas cloud collapsing in on itself and forming a planet with a rocky core.
That's a good way to visualize it. This difference in formation could have significant implications for a planet's evolution and its potential for habitability.
It's amazing to think about these different planetary formation pathways.
Yeah,
It's like nature has multiple recipes for creating worlds.
absolutely.
And speaking of different recipes, the article also touched upon the idea that super Earths might undergo different types of evolution compared to planets in our solar system.
You're right, we've been focused on how super-Earths form, but their evolution over billions of years can be equally fascinating.
What are some of the key differences in how super Earths might evolve compared to planets like Earth?
One intriguing possibility is that some hot Jupiters and hot Neptunes, those gas giants that orbit very close to their stars,
Right.
might actually evolve into smaller planets like mini Neptunes or even rocky planets over time.
Wait, so a giant gassy planet could potentially transform into a smaller, rocky world?
That's right.
How does that happen?
It's a process called atmospheric escape.
Ah.
If a gas giant is close enough to its star, the intense stellar radiation and heat can gradually strip away its atmosphere over millions or even billions of years,
Wow.
leaving behind a smaller, denser core.
So like a cosmic weight loss program for planets?
Uh-huh.
Shed those extra layers of gas and reveal the sculpted rocky core beneath. I love it.
It's a powerful reminder that planets are not static objects.
Right.
They evolve and change over time in response to their environment.
Absolutely. And this raises another fascinating question. If a gas giant loses enough of its atmosphere, could it eventually become habitable?
It's an intriguing thought, but there are some major caveats.
Okay.
While it's theoretically possible, the conditions on such a planet would likely be very different from what we consider habitable on Earth.
Right.
Remember, these planets started out as gas giants, so their cores might be very different from Earth's in terms of composition and structure.
Mhm.
They might also be tidally locked to their stars, leading to those extreme temperature differences we discussed earlier.
So maybe not exactly a tropical paradise,
Right.
but still a fascinating possibility. It just goes to show that there's so much we still don't know about the universe and the incredible variety of worlds that might exist out there.
That's the beauty of exploring the cosmos. Each new discovery opens up new possibilities
Yeah,
and challenges our assumptions about what's possible.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. And with new telescopes and instruments, coming online all the time, we're poised to make even more incredible discoveries about super-Earths in the coming years.
I'm already picturing myself on a research vessel, sailing across a vast, shallow ocean on a super Earth with these towering volcanoes spewing lava into the sky and strange, bioluminescent creatures swimming beneath the waves.
That's quite the image, but, we're still in the early stages of exploring these worlds.
Yeah,
We've only scratched the surface of what there is to learn about super-Earths.
true, but that's what makes it so exciting. There's so much left to discover. So as we continue our deep dive, I'm curious about the long-term fate of these super Earths. What happens to them as they age? Do they stay the same forever, or do they undergo significant changes?
That's a great question. Planets are not static objects. They evolve over time, and super-Earths are no exception.
Right.
One of the most significant factors in their evolution is their relationship with their host stars.
Okay.
As stars age, they change in size and luminosity, which can have a profound impact on the planets orbiting them.
So a super Earth's fate is intertwined with the fate of its star.
Right.
Can you give us some specific examples of how a star's evolution might affect a super Earth?
Sure, let's take our own sun as an example.
Okay.
In about 5 billion years, the sun will enter its red giant phase, expanding significantly and becoming much more luminous. As it expands, it will engulf the inner planets, Mercury and Venus.
Wow, that's a dramatic end for those planets. But what about Earth? Will it survive the sun's red giant phase?
Earth's fate is less certain. It might be swallowed by the expanding sun, or it might just get scorched as the sun's outer layers reach out towards it.
Yeah.
Either way, Earth will become uninhabitable long before the sun reaches its full red giant size.
That's a sobering thought.
Yeah.
So how does this relate to super Earths?
Well, many super-Earths orbit red dwarf stars,
Okay.
which are much smaller and cooler than our sun.
Right.
These stars have much longer lifespans, potentially trillions of years, compared to our sun's roughly 10 billion year lifespan.
So super Earths orbiting red dwarfs might have a lot more time to evolve and change than planets orbiting sun-like stars.
Exactly. But even red dwarfs eventually change as they age. They become slightly hotter and brighter, which could have significant implications for the habitability of their planets. A planet that was once comfortably within the habitable zone could find itself pushed outside as its star evolves.
It's like playing a cosmic game of musical chairs with planets shifting their positions around their stars as the stars change.
That's a good analogy. So even though red dwarfs have long lifespans, their planets are not immune to the effects of stellar evolution.
Fascinating. It seems like the universe is in constant flux with everything changing over time. But tell me, are there any internal processes within super-Earths themselves that might contribute to their evolution?
Absolutely. One of the most important internal processes is the cooling of a planet's interior. After a planet forms, it's incredibly hot,
Right.
but over time it gradually cools down as heat escapes into space.
So like a cosmic baked potato fresh out of the oven, gradually cooling on the counter.
Exactly. This cooling process can have significant effects on a planet's geology and atmosphere. As the interior cools, it contracts, which can cause the surface to wrinkle and form mountains and valleys. The cooling also affects the planet's magnetic field, which, as we discussed earlier, can play a crucial role in protecting the planet from harmful radiation.
It sounds like understanding a super-Earth's internal evolution is just as important as understanding its external environment.
You're right, it's a complex interplay of internal and external factors that shapes the evolution of these fascinating worlds.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive into super-Earths. We've talked about their definition, how we find them, their incredible diversity, and the challenges and possibilities they present for habitability. But before we wrap things up, I have one final question. What's the future of super-Earth research?
Right.
What are some of the key questions that scientists are hoping to answer in the coming years?
There are many exciting avenues of research that scientists are pursuing. One of the biggest challenges and opportunities is to directly image super-Earths and study their atmospheres.
Okay.
Currently, most of our knowledge about super-Earths comes from indirect observations, like the transit method,
Right.
which only tells us about their size and orbital period.
So we need to go beyond simply detecting super-Earths and actually see them directly to learn more about their characteristics.
Exactly. Direct imaging would allow us to study the composition of their atmospheres, look for signs of clouds, and even potentially detect biosignatures, which are chemical hints that might indicate the presence of life.
Wow, that would be incredible. But I imagine directly imaging a planet that's light years away is incredibly difficult.
It is incredibly challenging.
Yeah.
But new telescopes and technologies are being developed that will make it possible.
Okay.
For example, the James Webb Space Telescope, which launched in 2021, is designed to observe the universe in infrared light, which is ideal for studying exoplanet atmospheres.
So the James Webb Space Telescope could be a game changer for super-Earth research.
Absolutely. And ground-based telescopes are also getting more sophisticated. New adaptive optic systems can compensate for the blurring effects of Earth's atmosphere, allowing us to capture sharper images of distant objects, including planets.
It sounds like we're on the cusp of a new era in super-Earth research with the potential for groundbreaking discoveries in the years to come.
I agree. And beyond direct imaging, scientists are also working on developing new techniques to characterize super-Earths, like studying their magnetic fields and searching for evidence of volcanic activity.
It's exciting to think about all the mysteries waiting to be unraveled. But tell me, what about the search for life on super-Earths? What are the prospects for finding evidence of life on these distant worlds?
The search for life beyond Earth is one of the most fundamental questions in science, and super-Earths offer a unique opportunity to explore this question. While we haven't found definitive evidence of life on any exoplanet, yet the sheer number and diversity of super-Earths increase the odds that we might find a planet that harbors life.
It's like expanding the cosmic haystack, increasing the chances of finding the proverbial needle.
That's a good way to put it. And as our technology advances and we learn more about the conditions that are conducive to life, we'll be better equipped to identify those super-Earths that are most likely to host life.
It's a thrilling time to be following this field of research. Each new discovery brings us closer to answering the age-old question: are we alone in the universe?
Indeed. And even if we don't find life on a super-Earth, the knowledge we gain from studying these planets will revolutionize our understanding of planetary formation evolution and the incredible diversity of worlds that exist beyond our solar system.
It really does feel like we're on the verge of, some extraordinary discoveries. As we've been, delving into the world of super-Earths, Yeah. One thing that keeps striking me is just how much our understanding of planets has evolved in recent decades.
It is remarkable, isn't it?
Yeah.
Before the discovery of the first exoplanets in the early 1990s, we only had our own solar system as a reference point.
Right.
We kind of assumed that other planetary systems would be similar to ours, with small, rocky planets close to the star
Right.
and gas giants farther out.
Right, we had this neat and tidy picture of planetary formation.
Right.
But then, boom, super-Earths enter the scene, challenging our assumptions and, expanding our cosmic horizon.
Exactly. Super-Earths have shown us that planetary systems can be incredibly diverse, with planets forming in a wider range of sizes and orbital configurations than we ever imagined.
Yeah.
They've forced us to rethink our models of planetary formation and evolution.
It's like realizing that the universe is a much more imaginative architect than we initially gave it credit for.
That's right.
But speaking of imagination, one thing I've been picturing throughout this deep dive is what it would actually be like to stand on the surface of a super-Earth.
It's a tantalizing thought, isn't it?
Yeah.
Of course, we can only speculate based on what we know about their potential characteristics.
Oh.
But it's fun to imagine.
Exactly. For example, we talked about how some super-Earths might have thicker atmospheres and flatter topography than Earth. What kind of impact would that have on the landscape?
Well, a thicker atmosphere could scatter sunlight differently, creating different colors in the sky.
Oh, wow.
Imagine sunsets with hues we've never seen on Earth.
Yeah.
And if the topography is indeed flatter with vast, shallow oceans,
Right.
we might see endless horizons stretching out before us.
It's almost like a surreal alien painting. And what about the gravity? We discussed how super-Earths have higher gravity than Earth. How would that feel?
It would definitely take some getting used to.
Yeah.
We'd feel heavier, and our movements would be slower and more deliberate. Even simple tasks like walking or jumping would require more effort.
I can imagine it would be a great workout just to climb a flight of stairs. But perhaps we'd eventually adapt and develop stronger muscles. And who knows, maybe life on a super-Earth would evolve to take advantage of the higher gravity, leading to creatures with, unique body structures and adaptations.
That's a fascinating possibility.
Yeah.
Imagine creatures that glide through the thicker atmosphere.
Wow.
Or creatures with powerful limbs built for navigating the stronger gravitational pull.
It's a reminder that life finds a way, even in environments that seem challenging or even impossible to us.
Absolutely. Life is incredibly resilient and adaptable. We've seen it thrive in some of the most extreme environments on Earth, from the depths of the ocean to the scorching deserts.
Right.
So it's certainly plausible that life could find a way to flourish on a super-Earth, even with higher gravity or a different atmospheric composition.
It's awe-inspiring to think about the endless possibilities for life beyond our planet. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of super-Earths, I want to thank you for sharing your expertise and insights. It's been a fascinating journey, and I feel like I've learned so much.
It's been my pleasure. I'm always excited to share my passion for these incredible planets.
And to our listeners, we hope this deep dive has sparked your curiosity about the vast and diverse world of super-Earths. Keep looking up at the stars and wondering what other amazing worlds might be out there waiting to be discovered. Until next time, this has been The Deep Dive, your shortcut to being well-informed. All right, let's dive into the Olympics. We're going deep this time, folks. From ancient Greece to the global spectacle we know and love today. I bet you've got questions about the Olympics, the stories, the medals, even maybe some of the controversies.
It's a really rich history.
So let's untangle it, using, you guessed it, Wikipedia as our guide. We're pulling out the most interesting facts, the aha moments, all that good stuff. Get ready to impress your friends with some serious Olympic knowledge.
I think people will be surprised by how much the Olympics reflect history, politics, and even technology.
Oh, absolutely. They really are a mirror to the world, aren't they? So, okay, let's rewind all the way back to ancient Greece. Picture this, a huge festival in Olympia, dedicated to Zeus, the king of the gods.
It's hard to imagine the pressure.
I know, right? And the athletes weren't just competing for glory, but to honor the divine.
The ancient games were really all about ritual and sacrifice. It wasn't just physical ability. They were there to honor the gods and, show off the strength of the Greek city-states.
Oh, yeah. Speaking of city-states, there's that whole Olympic truce thing.
Yeah, a lot of people think it was like a total ceasefire, but
It wasn't.
not really. It's more about guaranteeing safe passage for people making their pilgrimage to Olympia for the games,
Wow, can you imagine making that journey, maybe even on foot?
to witness these legendary competitions.
Crazy. Okay, now for a little mythology. Heracles, son of Zeus, legend has it, he founded the games.
Ah, yes.
And get this. He also established the stadion measurement, the length of the foot race, by walking 200 steps.
So he basically paced out the first Olympic stadium.
Right. Talk about leaving your mark on history.
And for the first 13 Olympics, the only event was that foot race, just that stadium.
Wow, can you imagine training for years just for that one sprint? The pressure must have been unreal. So what did the winner get? An olive wreath, sure, but...
Fame, wealth, even statues in their honor.
So like instant celebrity?
They even used the winner's name to identify the Olympiad itself. So instead of saying, like, the third year of the 18th Olympiad, it would be the third year of the 18th Olympiad when, so-and-so won the stadium.
So basically becoming an Olympic champion meant your name was forever linked to that moment in time.
Exactly.
That's incredible. Sadly, those ancient games eventually faded away.
They did.
But the spirit of the Olympics never really died, did it?
Not at all. In the 19th century, there was a renewed interest in classical antiquity, and that really sparked the idea of bringing the games back.
It's like they felt this void, like there was this need to connect and compete on a global scale,
Right.
And there were even events like the Cotswold Games in England. They had been going on for centuries, showing that this idea of athletic competition, it never went away.
That universal urge to test ourselves,
Mm,
to strive for excellence and, friendly rivalry, seems like it's just part of being human.
totally. And then we have Evangelos Zappis, this wealthy Greek-Romanian guy who funded some of the first attempts to revive the games. He even sponsored those early games in 1859, right in an Athens city square.
Zappis was really crucial. He financed the restoration of the Panathinaikos Stadium, which ended up hosting the first modern Olympic Games in 1896.
It's amazing how his vision helped pave the way, right? But then comes Baron Pierre de Coubertin, the real game changer, this Frenchman who truly believed in the power of sport to unite people.
He's the one who created the IOC, the International Olympic Committee, in 1894.
Yeah, he really was a visionary. He imagined athletes from every nation competing peacefully, building camaraderie despite their differences.
It's a powerful idea.
And so, the stage was set for the first modern Olympic Games in Athens in 1896, the start of something truly special.
A new era. But as we'll see, the journey of the modern Olympics hasn't been without its bumps.
Oh, I bet. Early struggles, surprising changes, even controversies. It's a wild ride. So stick with us as we explore how the Olympics evolved. From the Winter Games to commercialization and all the challenges in between. Okay, so we've got these modern Olympics up and running, finally. But as you might expect, it wasn't all smooth sailing right from the start.
Right.
The 1900 Games in Paris, the 1904 Games in St. Louis.
They were a bit of a mess.
Yeah, kind of a rough start.
They faced several challenges. Both were actually overshadowed by the World's Fairs that were happening at the same time. So you had low participation and public interest.
Yeah, it's hard to stand out when you're sharing the stage with, like, massive technological expositions.
Imagine trying to have a track meet in the middle of a carnival.
Right. Not exactly ideal conditions for those early Olympians. Plus, there were some, questionable moments. Like that marathon runner in St. Louis, the one who hitched a ride in a car for part of the race.
Not exactly the Olympic spirit.
Not quite. But hey, there was a bright spot amidst all this chaos, right?
Yes, definitely. The 1906 Intercalated Games held in Athens,
Mm-hmm.
they were a huge success. It was like the Olympics got a second chance to prove themselves, and they totally nailed it.
It's a great comeback story. Right. But speaking of evolving, we can't forget about the Winter Olympics.
Oh, of course.
It's hard to imagine the games without those incredible feats on ice and snow.
Absolutely. The Winter Games came about because, well, obviously you can't have skiing and ice skating in the summer. Those sports needed their own time to shine.
Yeah, that makes sense. But get this. Figure skating and ice hockey, they were initially part of the Summer Olympics.
That's right.
Wait, so they were skating and playing hockey in the summer heat?
It does seem a bit strange now, doesn't it?
Yeah, kind of counterintuitive.
But then, in 1924, the first separate Winter Olympics were held in Chamonix, France.
Voila, the Winter Games were born.
And eventually they found their rhythm, settling into that schedule we know today, alternating with the Summer Games every 4 years.
Makes sense. But the evolution didn't stop there. What about the Paralympic Games?
Oh, the Paralympics. Such an inspiring story. What started as a way to help World War II veterans rehabilitate, led by Sir Ludwig Guttmann.
Amazing.
It's grown into this global sporting event.
It's incredible, right? From a small hospital competition in 1948 to this global stage for athletes with disabilities. Talk about breaking down barriers.
It really shows that the human spirit, the desire to compete and achieve athletic excellence, it goes beyond any physical limitations.
So powerful. And then there's the Youth Olympic Games.
Yes, giving young athletes a chance to compete on the world stage, promoting cultural exchange, all of that.
It's like a mini Olympics, right?
Yeah.
A glimpse into the future of sports and international collaboration. But as the Olympics grew in scope and influence, they also entered a new era, one marked by, well, commercialization.
Right.
This was especially true under Juan Antonio Samaranch's presidency.
He wanted the IOC, to be financially independent.
Yeah.
And the 1984 Los Angeles Games were a turning point.
Hip.
They embraced these exclusive sponsorship deals and made a significant profit.
It's amazing how a single games can be such a game changer.
Suddenly, all these big companies wanted to be a part of the Olympics.
They wanted a piece of that Olympic pie.
Exactly. And that's how we got the Olympic program, TOP, which gives exclusive global advertising rights to certain corporations.
Wow. And then, of course, television came along and changed everything.
Huge broadcasting deals, even the scheduling of events started to cater to certain markets to maximize viewership.
It's true. We have television to thank for those iconic slow-motion replays, the dramatic narratives, all the primetime scheduling that keeps us glued to our screens.
It's become such a shared experience.
But this commercialization, well, it raised some concerns too, right? About balancing the purity of sport with the pursuit of profit.
Yeah, it's a delicate balance.
On one hand, you've got sportsmanship and unity, but on the other, there's big business and media influence.
And this tension becomes even more apparent when we look at the controversies that have surrounded the Olympics. Doping scandals, political boycotts, even allegations of corruption within the IOC. It's a lot.
Yeah, the dark side of the games, unfortunately. It's a reminder that the Olympics aren't immune to the problems that exist in the world.
Right, exactly.
Whether it's athletes using performance-enhancing drugs or nations using the games for their own political agendas, these issues cast a pretty big shadow.
One of the most striking examples is the 1980 and 1984 boycotts. The U.S. leading a boycott of the Moscow Games because of the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan, and then the Soviets boycotting the Los Angeles Games.
It shows you how intertwined sports and politics can be.
Even events meant to promote peace can get caught in the middle of global conflict.
And then there's the whole financial burden on the host cities.
Yeah.
The cost of hosting these games is enormous, often leading to displaced communities, unsustainable projects.
It's a lot to ask of a city.
So as we head into the final part of our deep dive, we have to ask, with all these complexities and controversies, what does the future hold for the Olympic Games?
Big question.
Can they adapt to this changing world? Or are they destined to become a relic of the past? It's been quite a journey, right? From those ancient stadiums in Olympia to the modern spectacle we see today. And clearly the Olympics are facing some big hurdles these days. Doping, political agendas, financial burdens. It can feel kind of overwhelming. So where do we go from here? Can the Olympic spirit, can it survive in our crazy world?
Well, it's true. The Olympics are at a crossroads. But I think it's important to remember that these issues, they aren't being swept under the rug. People are working on them.
Okay, that's good.
Like doping, for instance, the World Anti-Doping Agency, they're constantly working on better detection methods, stricter punishments, that sort of thing.
It feels like we're always hearing about another doping scandal, though. It makes you wonder, can they ever really level the playing field?
It's a constant battle, that's for sure. But I think every time a scandal comes to light, it just strengthens the commitment to clean sport,
I guess that makes sense. It also forces us to look at the pressure on these athletes.
Right, exactly. And the systems that might even lead them to doping in the first place.
Okay, what about the financial strain on host cities? That's a big one.
Yeah. Is there any way to make it less burdensome?
Well, the IOC is encouraging the use of existing facilities, temporary structures, to minimize the impact. We're also seeing more cities bidding for both the summer and winter games, like Beijing did in 2022.
So they don't have to build as much.
Exactly. Less construction, less disruption.
Okay, I like that. But beyond all the logistics and challenges, can the Olympics still do what they were meant to do? Promote peace and understanding in a world that feels so divided.
That's a big question, right? With all the conflict and polarization we see today, can the games really a unifying force?
Right?
I believe they can, but maybe it requires a little shift in perspective. Maybe it's not about achieving world peace, but about focusing on those smaller but still meaningful moments of connection.
You mean like when competitors show good sportsmanship or athletes from different countries celebrate each other? Exactly. It's a reminder that we all share something, something that goes beyond borders and politics.
No, we're all human.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
It might not solve wars, but it shows what's possible when we come together.
That's a powerful message, especially now.
It is.
Well, this has been an incredible journey, exploring the history, the evolution, and the challenges facing the Olympics.
It really has.
And, I think the future of the games depends not just on the athletes or the organizations, but on us, the viewers, the fans, the people who believe in the power of sport.
So next time you watch the Olympics, look past the medals and the records. Look for those moments of human connection, those acts of kindness and respect.
Because those moments, those are what the Olympic spirit is all about. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the Olympic Games. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep believing in the power of sport to make a difference. All right, let's jump right in. Today we're doing a deep dive on elephants. You wanted to know everything about them, and you gave us this Wikipedia article as a starting point.
Great choice. Wikipedia is like a goldmine of info.
Yeah, for sure. I was already fascinated by elephants, but this article, man, it blew my mind. Did you know that elephants are actually related to manatees? Those like chill sea cows?
It's true, they share a common ancestor way back, part of a group called Afrotheria. It's amazing how evolution makes these connections you wouldn't expect.
I know, right? It's like finding out you're related to a mermaid or something.
Mm.
And speaking of unexpected things, get this, elephants have dominant sides, just like us humans. They can be right-trunked or left-trunked, like righties and lefties.
It makes sense when you think about how they use their trunks for everything. It's like an extra hand.
Totally. Oh, and check this out. Their skulls are designed so that the inside is like honeycomb to make it lighter, but their jawbones are super dense.
That's because they're herbivores. They need that strong jaw to grind up all those plants.
Okay, so before we get lost in the details, can we get a quick overview of the different types of elephants out there?
Of course. We have three main species: the African bush elephant, the African forest elephant, and the Asian elephant. Each one has unique characteristics.
All right, let's meet these elephant cousins.
First up, the African bush elephant. These are the giants you picture when you think of elephants roaming the savanna. They're the largest land mammals on Earth, and those huge ears. They're not just for show, they act like radiators, helping them stay cool in the heat.
So like built-in AC.
Pretty much. Now let's head into the forests of Central and West Africa. That's where you'll find the African forest elephant. They're smaller than their bush cousins, with rounder ears and straighter tusks, perfect for maneuvering through dense forests.
Fascinating. So that's the two African branches. What about their Asian relatives?
Asian elephants are found across South and Southeast Asia. They're a bit smaller than African elephants and have smaller ears. And here's a fun fact. Only the males have large tusks, unlike African elephants where both males and females usually have them.
I noticed the article mentioned that poaching is affecting tusk size in African elephants. It's kind of scary how fast those changes can happen.
It is. It's a sad example of how human actions impact nature. The demand for ivory has led to more elephants with smaller tusks or no tusks at all surviving and passing on their genes.
It's mind-blowing how quickly evolution can work when there's that kind of pressure. Speaking of change, I was amazed to learn that elephants weren't always these massive creatures. They started out pretty small millions of years ago, right?
You got it. Their evolutionary journey is amazing. Over 60 million years, they gradually increased in size and developed that iconic trunk, which is basically a nose and upper lip combined.
60 million years. Wow. So what did those early ancestors look like? Like a dog with a tiny trunk?
Well, not exactly. Some of the earliest, like Moratherium, were semi-aquatic. But as they transitioned to eating grass, their molars changed. They developed these loop-shaped ridges, perfect for grinding. This dietary shift was key to their evolution into the giants we see today.
And speaking of giants, the article mentioned something about Paleoloxodon pneumaticus. What's the story there?
Now that's where things get really interesting. Paleoloxodon pneumaticus is an extinct elephant species that roamed Asia millions of years ago. It's considered a contender for the largest land mammal ever. We're talking possibly over 4 meters tall and weighing over 10 tons.
4 meters tall. That's taller than a double-decker bus. It's incredible to think that creatures that massive once roamed the Earth. And what about those cases of island dwarfism?
Ah, yes. When elephants get stuck on islands with limited resources, they evolve differently.
Mm.
Smaller individuals do better, leading to a gradual decrease in size over generations,
Yeah.
like Paleoxodon falconeri, a dwarf elephant that lived on the island of Sicily. They were only about a meter tall.
A meter-tall elephant. That's wild. It really shows how adaptable elephants have been throughout history. And it's not just about physical adaptations, right? Their social structures are complex, too.
Absolutely. Elephants are incredibly smart and social. Their social lives are full of intricate relationships, cooperation, and communication.
So I usually think of ant colonies or beehives when I think of animal societies. What
Yeah.
makes elephant societies different?
Elephant societies are matriarchal, meaning they're led by the oldest and wisest females. These matriarchs have so much knowledge about their environment, the best food sources, water holes, how to avoid danger.
Like a walking encyclopedia leading the family.
Exactly. And these family groups, especially among African bush elephants, are incredibly close. The females live together their whole lives, raising their young and supporting each other.
That's amazing. What about the males? Where do they fit in?
Male elephants have a different social path. They leave their families once they reach maturity, around 12 to 15 years old. They often live alone or form temporary bachelor groups coming back to the family, mainly for mating.
So they go off and find their own way, but the article mentions something about must in male elephants. What is that exactly?
Must is a really interesting period in a male elephant's life. It's basically a huge surge of testosterone that makes them more aggressive and focused on mating.
So like the elephant version of a teenager going through puberty.
Kind of, but it's a bit more complex. During must, males become very competitive with each other, battling for dominance and the chance to mate with females.
So how can you tell when an elephant is in must, besides being more aggressive?
Well, there's a pretty clear sign. They secrete a fluid from their temporal glands, which are on the sides of their heads. It's a mix of hormones and pheromones that signals to other elephants that this male's ready to mate.
It's like their own personal billboard.
Haha, yeah. It's an effective way to communicate their status and attract potential mates. But it's not just about the females. Must also helps establish dominance among the males.
Wow, so must adds another layer of complexity to elephant social dynamics. It's amazing how much is going on beneath the surface. And speaking of amazing, we can't forget about their most iconic feature, the trunk. It's like nature's Swiss Army knife.
The trunk is definitely one of the most incredible adaptations in the animal kingdom. It's both powerful and delicate, allowing elephants to interact with their world like no other animal can.
I can't even wrap my head around the fact that it's basically their nose and upper lip combined with like 150,000 muscles. That's more muscles than some people have in their whole body.
And those muscles allow for a huge range of motion and sensitivity. The trunk is strong enough to rip branches off trees, yet gentle enough to pick up a single blade of grass.
The article said they use their trunks for everything from drinking and smelling to communicating and even snorkeling. Is that for real?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The trunk is essential for so many things. They use it to trumpet greetings, touch their young, explore their surroundings, and even sense tiny changes in the air, like the smell of water from miles away.
It's like having an extra limb. It's incredible. I can't wait to hear more about all the things they can do with their trunks.
Okay,
Right.
I'm ready for more trunk talk. But first, the Wikipedia article mentions some other cool adaptations, like their skin. It's super thick, but also really sensitive. How does that even work?
It's all about layers. The outer layer is that tough, leathery hide. But underneath, there's a more delicate layer that needs protection.
So it's like they have built-in armor? You could say that. And those mud baths you see, those aren't just for fun.
I was wondering about those. They seem to love getting covered in mud.
Right. The mud acts as a natural sunscreen and bug repellent. And those wrinkles, those help too.
Wait, the wrinkles?
Yeah, the wrinkles trap the mud, keeping it on longer. Plus, they increase the skin surface area, which helps them cool down.
So those wrinkles are like built-in cooling fins. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And how about their legs? How do they support all that weight?
Elephant legs are incredible. They're positioned directly under their bodies for better stability, and their foot bones are arranged to distribute their weight evenly.
I remember reading about something called cushion pads in their feet. What are those?
Imagine walking on a giant cushion. That's what those pads do. They act like shock absorbers, softening the impact of each step. It's one of the reasons elephants can move so quietly.
It's mind-blowing how stealthy they can be for such big animals. And they can move pretty fast too, right? I've seen videos of elephants charging, and it's terrifying.
They can't gallop or jump, but they have a fast walk called an amble, which can get up to 16 miles per hour.
16 miles per hour, that's faster than I can run. I would want to be in the way of that. And they can swim too, right?
Oh, yeah. They're great swimmers. They use their trunks as snorkels and can swim for hours.
Mm.
They've even been known to cross rivers and oceans.
Now I'm picturing an elephant doing the backstroke. Okay, so we've talked about their outside. What about their insides? Any cool internal stuff?
Definitely. For one, their lungs are attached to their diaphragm, and they breathe mostly through their trunks.
So their breathing is totally different from ours.
Very different. And their digestive system is wild. They have a hindgut fermentation system, meaning they rely on bacteria in their intestines to break down plant matter.
So it's like a whole ecosystem happening in their gut.
Exactly. But it's a slow process. Despite eating tons of food every day, they only digest about half of it.
Wow, that's a lot of eating for not much energy.
It's a trade-off for their size and diet. And this is where dung beetles come in.
Dung beetles, I'm guessing they clean up the leftovers.
They're key. Dung beetles break down elephant dung, which recycles nutrients back into the soil. It's a great example of how everything's connected in nature.
It's amazing how every creature has a role to play. Okay, so what about their hearts and brains?
Their hearts are impressive. They can weigh up to 46 pounds and have a unique shape with two pointy ends. And their brains, of course, are the largest of any land mammal.
Right. Elephant brains are huge. Does that mean they're smarter than us?
Not necessarily. While their brains are bigger, they're actually proportionally smaller than human brains. What's interesting is their structure. Their temporal lobes, which deal with memory and social information, are much larger than ours.
So that explains their amazing memories and complex social lives.
Precisely. And speaking of social relationships, remember muth in male elephants?
Oh yeah, that testosterone overload. What about it?
Well, it turns out it's not just about aggression, it's a key part of elephant mating.
So do females just go for the most aggressive males?
It's more complicated than that. Females are drawn to males in musth because it shows they're fit. Older males who've gone through many musth cycles are especially attractive.
So it's a sign of experience and strength. Makes sense. But how does the actual mating work? With animals that big, it must be awkward.
Well, it's not always pretty. The male mounts the female from behind, and their anatomy is surprisingly well suited for it. Their penises are very mobile, so they don't need to thrust.
Okay, that's more information than I needed, but let's move on to something more serious. The Wikipedia article mentions some of the challenges elephants face in the wild.
Yeah, unfortunately, both African and Asian elephants are endangered, and their populations are shrinking fast. Human activity is the main threat, and is a tough issue to solve.
Poaching for ivory has always been a problem. Is that still the biggest threat?
It's still a major concern, but international bans on the ivory trade have helped reduce demand. And some countries have tougher anti-poaching measures, which have made a difference.
That's good to hear. But it's not just poaching, right? What about habitat loss?
You're right. As humans expand, we take up more of the elephant's habitat. This leads to deforestation, habitat fragmentation, and conflict between humans and elephants.
Yeah, those conflicts can be devastating for everyone.
It's true. Elephants might raid crops, damage property, and sometimes even hurt people. It's a reminder that we need to find ways to coexist peacefully.
So what can we do to help? It seems overwhelming.
It's a big challenge, but there are things we can do. We need stronger anti-poaching efforts, habitat protection, and wildlife corridors to connect fragmented populations.
And what about those human-elephant conflicts? How can those be addressed?
It takes a multi-pronged approach. Educating communities about elephant behavior, improving crop protection, and promoting sustainable land use can all help.
It sounds like there's no easy fix. It'll take a lot of effort to make sure these amazing animals survive.
Absolutely. It requires a global effort to protect elephants and their habitats. Their future depends on it. Speaking of which, let's switch gears for a bit and talk about something a little lighter: the role of elephants in human culture.
It's amazing how elephants have been part of human stories and cultures for, forever. You see them in art, mythology, religion, even kids' books.
Yeah, it's not surprising. They're these huge, smart creatures that we share the world with. And it makes sense that they'd have a big impact on us.
I mean, think about those ancient cave paintings of mammoths, their ancestors. It's crazy how long they've been inspiring us.
And those paintings aren't just about their physical appearance. They often represent deeper ideas like wisdom, strength, power, even godliness.
Oh, right. Like Ganesha, the elephant-headed god in Hinduism.
Exactly. Ganesha is a great example of how different cultures see elephants as special. He's seen as a symbol of intelligence, new beginnings, and the arts.
But then you have those cute, fun depictions too, like Dumbo, that flying elephant with the giant ears.
Yeah, kids' stories usually focus on the sweeter side of elephants, like their kindness, loyalty, and family bonds. They become characters we can relate to that teach us important lessons.
And who could forget Babar, the elephant king who wears a suit?
He's a classic. Babar shows resilience, adaptability, and how education can change your life. It's interesting how these stories use elephants to explore universal themes.
It's not just stories and mythology, though. We even use elephant imagery in everyday language, like the elephant in the room.
It's such a strong metaphor. The elephant's size makes it impossible to ignore, just like some issues we face.
And sometimes that unavoidable presence leads to conflict, like when elephants damage crops or property.
Those situations are tough. They highlight the need for both sides, humans and elephants, to understand and respect each other's space.
Okay, so we've talked about elephants as symbols of wisdom, strength, humor, and even tough realities. But there's one cultural reference I've always found weird, the white elephant.
And the white elephant is interesting. In some cultures, they're seen as sacred.
Right. In places like Thailand and Myanmar, they represent good luck and royal power.
Exactly. But in the West, white elephant means something completely different.
It means something useless, unwanted, a burden. It's a strange difference.
The meaning actually comes from an old Siamese custom. Kings would give albino elephants, which are super rare, to people they didn't like as a gift.
Wait, really? Why?
Because these white elephants were sacred, the person couldn't refuse the gift, but they were also crazy expensive to take care of, so the gift would end up ruining them financially.
Oh, I get it. It was like a sneaky way to get revenge, a white elephant gift.
Exactly. It shows how different cultures can see things so differently. And it highlights the complicated relationship between humans and elephants throughout history.
Well, I think we've officially covered everything elephant, from their anatomy and how they evolved to their social lives, their intelligence, and how they show up in human culture.
It's been quite a journey.
It really has. I feel like I could teach an elephant class now.
And our listener is well on their way to becoming an elephant expert, too.
Huge thanks to our listener for joining us on this deep dive. It's been awesome exploring the world of elephants together.
Absolutely. And remember, the more we learn about these incredible creatures, the more we realize how much more there is to learn. Their future depends on us understanding them, respecting them, and protecting them.
Elephants truly show us how amazing nature is. Let's all do our part to make sure these awesome animals are around for a long time.
I agree.
Thanks for joining us on the deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep those elephant facts in mind.